I don't see a countdown. We're live. Hello, welcome everybody to the first day of the Out of Control Dogs Summit. I'm Kelly Dunbar, your host, and here's Ian. Here's Ian. I can't do it. There's Ian Dunbar.
Here is Ian.
Hello, Ian.
Hi, Kelly. Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Good to see you. Good to see your smiling face. I'm so excited that we're doing this together and that we have so many cool presenters. And, I'd also like to start out by thanking our sponsors. We have two wonderful sponsors, Ness Jones. She's Separation Anxiety and Dogs Decoded. That's her gig. And Doggy Dan. He's a wonderful guy as well. So thank you, Doggy Dan. Thank you, Ness. And you will be hearing from both of them later in this week. I think we're ready for some questions whenever they want to come in. Hopefully that will give people, oh, look at this. We have a question already. Yeah. Look at that. This is from Vicky. How do I support my fearful 1-year-old dog who won't go past our yard on leash? She is so afraid that she shakes all over and pulls to go back inside the house. We live in a quiet neighborhood and dog, I can't read the rest of the question. Live in a quiet neighborhood and dog. Okay, so Ian, would you like to take that question?
Sure.
How can we get this?
Then don't go through the gate. I mean, it's standard rule when, teaching people how to teach their dog to walk on leash is, well, first don't put it on leash, practice following indoors, then following in your yard, and then heel off leash in your yard. Then you put the leash on a trained dog. And with all that prior proper preparation, we can now teach them to on leash. So now we head outside the house and we get to the gate, stand still. If you want to teach your dog to walk on leash, the first rule is don't walk. If you take your dog for a walk, even a puppy that's not scared, within one walk, you're going to unintentionally train in so many problems. It's top one would be sniffing and pulling on leash. This one would be you trying to force your dog to walk because he doesn't want to. So I would get a chair from the house, sit down and let your dog sit down and watch the world go by. The world is a scary place. That I used to do this demonstration of what's going on in a dog's brain every step it takes. And it sort of goes like this. So you're walking the dog. If you move through the environment, it goes, there's a cat somewhere. There's a cat. I know it's watching me. McDonald's wrapper, I see that. Oh, good. Dog pee. Let me sniff. Wind's blowing. Heard a noise. There it is. Squirrel. These millions of pieces of information are coming into your dog's brain because you're moving through the environment. So don't move through the environment. You can only classically condition your dog if your dog is still and you're looking for the 1 and 2 environmental changes. Once the dog has had a good 10 minutes to sit down and check everything else, he stopped shaking, he's kind of cool, and you fed him about 20 food rewards, then someone's coming down the street very slowly. So now you can pray, oh, look, there's a person. Oh, yeah, it's a cookie person. Here we go. Food treat, food treat, food treat. Oh, they've gone. What a shame. So you see, you can only classically condition the dog is set with the environment. If you walk through it, it's new with every step. And that is what makes dogs react and overreact, because the sensory input is just too much for them. Take your time. When your dog's stand up, move your chair 1 yard, sit down again. I'm being serious. Do it a yard at a time and take time. Your dog is scared. To prevent this happening, you're too late now, but I would have taken the dog on loads of walks, but carrying it or pushing it in the carrier, loads of car rides, so it can see the outside world in the comfort, of your arms. But you got to deal with it now. So please be patient with your dog. You will be walking it round, the block on leash, but don't be too hasty to do that. Even when you can walk, go on the block, go back and forth. So you're
You have
always
lots of
covering own ground.
You have lots
That's
of
okay.
information on this, don't you? In the package that, we have lots of fearful dog information for the audience in your presentation, yeah?
I'm trying to think what my presentation was.
Package.
Oh no, that was over the play styles, but
no, in the Dunbar Academy and in the bundle that we've put together.
Oh yeah, loads and loads and loads and loads. Your voice is a little delayed to me, Kelly. I see you, so just put your hand up if you want me to stop talking, because your voice interruption is coming in late. Yeah.
Okay. All right. No, that's great. But I think it is the takeaways are to go very slowly, let your dog acclimate to the environment, one little inch at a time, 1 foot at a time. Do lots of classical conditioning to change your dog's emotional response using food, praise, calm, attention to your dog, and to practice leash walking and other skills that you can later utilize inside your house and garden. So that's one less thing you'll have to do once you get out there. You can probably condition the leash. You have to be part of the excitement, right? By starting in house,
Yeah, I mean, that was my first thought. Is it the leash or is it leaving the gate? So I would do all the leash work indoors and in the yard first. And then we're dealing with all the stimuli outside of the garden gate. Well, let's have a think there. How many stimuli from the big wide world can we bring into our house? Well, people, dogs, lots of it, right? So let's have some
noises,
doggy parties
right?
at home. Sounds, yeah, pre-recorded sounds, children, noisemakers, kind of like
also,
what we do.
If you're, I don't know why we have such a delay.
No.
Also, if your dog is comfortable in the car, you can do car work, right? Sit them in the car.
Oh yeah.
And drive them
or
around.
in a carrier, push it around like everyone does in Japan,
So so those are lots of things you can work on in the meantime, but the key is to take it slowly. Okay, let's see. Do we have another question?
Doing.
JD, what is your take on snuggle puppies? Is it good to play music for your puppy to comfort them and help them relieve stress? I like snuggle puppies, and they have the heartbeat puppies and the music puppies. I mean, can't hurt, might help, right? It's in that. I think it's in that category. They do have studies, I believe, and can comment on this in a moment about classical music, calming and soothing animals in the shelter environment, for instance. I like to play classical or talk radio, like quiet, like NPR, like public radio, kind of stuff that has a very calm voice to it for the dogs, just, for a little bit of white noise, background noise, which I think is helpful so they also just don't hear every little bump out of the silence. And then if they have a little heartbeat thing, I mean, have you ever snuggled a snuggle puppy with a heartbeat? It is soothing. So, and then also just having something to snuggle up against is good. Now, the exception here is if you have a puppy that is going to tear something up. There's mechanical parts in that type of toy, so it might not be safe. If you have a baby puppy with weak jaws, I'd say yes. Or if you have a gentle older puppy or adolescent, that might be fine. But you do have to use discretion and watch what they do with it. You don't want them chewing any kind of plush toy apart, let alone one that has maybe batteries or electronics inside.
Yeah,
anything to add on snuggle?
here, obviously, I think we're talking about a puppy's first night or second night away from mum and litter mate. So it's going to be really stressed and anxious. We're not talking about a pup that's been in the house for a month. I mean, they shouldn't be stressed by now. My view on these, actually, we had one. I didn't know what it was called. And so I set it up, and then its heart stopped. So I had to take it apart. Being a veterinarian, and like, come on, puppy, keep your heart beating. It's meant to be calming. It's frustrating me. But these things, to me, music is good. As said, for the white noise, I never stray from the obvious, though. The puppy looks to you for reassurance and guidance, and you need to give it, especially the first 2 nights away from those puppies must be so stressed, their adrenals have emptied. And so you have to provide instruction and guidance to change the way it feels. And you do that by changing its behavior. And I'll be mentioning this all the time, every Q&A, and when we do it afterwards, I think on Facebook, you have got to get the puppy to stop vocalizing, to stop moving, shush and settle. And I actually love doing this puppy first night away from home. And we had an exciting one just a while back. It screamed and screamed and screamed. And it took me 3.5 hours. I was lying on the cold floor in the training room as the puppy was in its crate, talking to him, talking him through it, reading the paper, relaying the basketball scores to him. And I kept repeating, shush, shush, settle down, because we only had him for 2 hours, so we hadn't taught him down. But eventually the puppy goes down. Now what you must do is praise him more. Otherwise, you should unintentionally reinforce, the screaming and the whining and the agitation. But as soon as they settle down, there's a brave puppy, aren't you? Do you want another treat? There's a good puppy, okay, rather than being afraid of waking them. So I actually do it so they do wake up again, so I can have another practice, which will take a shorter time, to get the puppy calm and quiet and feeling much better again.
Yes, you're really good at that. You're really good at the first night type stuff with puppies.
Well,
one time, one of the few times you're patient. No, but you are nocturnal too. It is good. It is. So there you go. Next question. That was a good one though. Snuggle puppies. Linda, my border collie is activity reactive. Sorry, I say actively reactive. Pardon me, Linda. My border collie is activity reactive. So in agility trials, all she wants to do is run back and forth at the ring gate. How can I help her want to ignore the crowd? Well, there's lots you can do to work on this, but the first thing to do is to probably work on that outside of the agility trials, find other places that are not quite as intense, because that's intense. There's a lot of barking and running at agility trials, more than even the average dog park. So while I'm not going to recommend you go into the dog park or a common area where dogs romp, or even if you'll do this, if it doesn't have to be dogs, you could go to a human sports field. And you work as far away as you need to at first to get your dog to engage with you every time you go outside. And one tip for this is to practice first, not even in these activity scenarios. You want this to be like a habit that you've set up. So, I do a lot of sporting things with my dogs, and I want them to learn to focus on me when we get to the place. And so what I do when they're young is, and it's never too late, is I put them in the car if I'm doing errands, for instance, and I'm not necessarily going anywhere dog-centric or fun. And I get them out, and we, depending on the dog, I might let them sniff, give a little pee on a tree, and just take in the environment for a moment. But mostly what I try to do is get them to engage with me immediately, even before they go for a pee or a sniff. So you come out, and I bring out one of your favorite toys, and we play, or I take out some really nice treats and we do food toss in the air, spin, toss, touch, kind of activate them, but all facing me. really quickly, and it's a very short game. They may or may not get to sniff and pee afterwards, and then we go back in the car, and then we go to another spot. And we do, in an errand day, we might do 3 or 4 of those little sessions, and then we might go to a park or a soccer field where there are people and perhaps some dogs. But then, then you work up the ranks, right? Then maybe it's a dog park, and then maybe it's outside the agility field at the parking lot or at class in the distance. But engagement is the key. You want to be able to have a few key words or cues and games that get your dog excited to look at you, and get them doing something. Ask them to do something fun, and that is, together, something with you. And I wouldn't do healing, and I wouldn't, do anything too hard or boring, although there will be a place for that eventually. But the idea initially is when they come out of the car, they think, what are we doing together? And they focus on you, and they kind of start ignoring. They don't care then eventually what the environment is if you are doing something fun. But again, proximity may be key. These little sting operations where you're out and about and just get them out briefly and put them back, keeping them really kind of excited about the anticipation of the next game really worked well for me. Ian's going to tell you something completely different, I'm sure.
No, I'm just going to put it in different words, very objective, scientifically proven words, what's happening here. In Shade and Sam's talks, you heard a lot about checking how your dog is feeling. Is your dog stressed? Is it distracted? And what have you? I use the simplest of all. I think Shade talked about taking food from the hand or the ground. And if the dog gets it wrong when it's taking food or misses a go play signal, then that dog is really not paying attention to you, either because he's stressed or just distracted by what's going on. So my test is a 1 step back. So if you're walking forwards or standing still, you take a quick step back and then you say, come, sit, watch. So you want the dog to come, sit instantly, remain sitting in a stay, and watch you. So the sit is an activity inhibitor, if you like. It stops the activity. The watch is a stimulus blocker. If the dog's watching you, it can't be watching anything else. So we test this out, and we have a very simple objective test that we call a response reliability percentage. So we will test it, say, 20 times just walking around the living room. And then we find how many times did we have to say come, which means come and sit, and how many times did the dog do it. And we take these two numbers, the number of responses, let's say 20 come, sit, watches, but we had to use 40 commands. Times 100, that's 50% response reliability percentage, okay, understand? So now what we do is we have a thing called response reliability shift. You see, because people think knowing something is black or white. Oh, he knows that. And I just want to shake my head or bang it against a brick wall. Knowing ranges from 0 to 100%. And we test that out. So we test the dog in the kitchen. Let's say the dog's 75% there. That's a pretty good dog. Move to the living room, we drop to 60%. Go outside, you'll drop to 25%. Go through your garden gate onto the sidewalk, we're down at 5%. And in the dog park, for a lot of people, it's 0. So Kelly says, you start in the kitchen at dinner time and you practice this, come, sit, watch, come, sit, watch. And if he does that, if he sits, he won't be running back and forth. If he's looking at you, he won't be looking or listening to, what else is going on. So you practice it in the kitchen till you're at 95%. Then you move to the living room till it's 95%. Then in your yard till it's 95%. See, bit by bit, we're gradually increasing the complexity of it. So when you actually text this out, and I just actually today, look, I drew this out. This is my new book. And this is an example of, you see that little histogram there? Ooh, where is it? There. You got a bar. That was the kitchen. Coming down, the living room. That was response reliability of a sequence, sit down, sit, stand down, stand, with verbal commands only. Well, if in your own house he's dropping to 10%, You can't do it in an agility trial. It's madness. Okay. So it's bit by bit. But when you test, there's your prize, there's your reward, your motivation, because you can see dramatic improvement in just a 60-minute session.
Excellent response. There's a lot to do there and a lot to unpack, and that will be useful for everybody who has a dog that is activity reactive, which, it doesn't have to be dogs at an agility trial. It literally can be when you go to your kid's soccer game, or when you're trying to walk in the park and they're a cyclist, or whatever it may be. But running dogs or running animals is really going to be difficult. Okay, next question. Who is next? Lynn. This question is regarding the use of the umbrella if needed when meeting an off-leash dog. Won't the open umbrella block my dog's view and perhaps make him more nervous? That's a good question. I don't think anyone's ever really asked that from that perspective before. I mean, first of all, make sure that your dog is desensitized to the umbrella opening, because that can.
It was in the ATTS, the American Temperament Society test, the opening the umbrella to see.
It's a startle test. It's a startle test. So you do have to make sure that your dog is already used to a quick action release of an umbrella before you even take that on the road. Get them used to that. But blocking the view might make them more nervous. I see where you can think that, but honestly, blocking the view will alleviate much of the problem. But on top of blocking the view, really what you're doing is you're making a barrier. Hopefully, maybe you are slightly startling the other dog. I don't know, maybe that's what people do on purpose. But mainly you're blocking, it's a physical block that you can carry with you and that you can move to keep your dog sheltered, literally physically sheltered from this other dog. And the weirdness of the umbrella might actually keep the other dog away. Your dog has to know that you have their back. And this is an important piece of the puzzle. They, if if you don't want them to react, if you don't want them to be scared or angry or even excited, you have to know you kind of step in front of them, you put them a little bit behind you, you open your umbrella, and they've got to just know that you're handling the situation. And then as soon as they, if you do, and the dog stays away, you can praise your dog and reward your dog for staying calm. I don't think it'll bother your dog as much as you think to have not be able to have a view.
I just wouldn't use something like that at all. That it's so complicated, cumbersome, and what it means is you've moved too far too quickly. If you think your dog's going to be upset meeting another dog, then he shouldn't be on a walk yet. We should have brought the other dogs, his core social group, into the home and meeting 2 or 3 times a week for play dates and stuff like that. Now, obviously, what we're scared of here, that this other off-leash dog is going to charge your dog and attack it, and that's the fear that everyone says. Well, as Kelly says, you've got to have your dog's back. You have to, number one, teach your dog and prepare your dog for that eventuality, what to do when that out-of-control dog comes charging at yours. And that's where you have to give the dog social savvy and the dog skills to, as best as possible, circumvent that attack. So here's the things that will make the attack go bad. You picking up your dog squeaking, growling, barking, eyeballing, jumping up and down, circling, maybe even an umbrella suddenly opening up. Little things like that can spark it and make it worse. The best attack that we all have is if your dog displays unconcern. So when I practice my 1 step back, come, sit, watches, I also do it with butt wiggles and tail wags. Now, here's the deal. When a dog looks at another dog, if he's being super obsequious or he's being, oh yeah, you want to fight there, and he's eyeballing, that could really precipitate the attack and send it up, way over threshold. But if your dog appears to be absolutely nonchalant and actually putting out friendly signs, that's the best attack that you ever have in a situation like this. So I like the dog to have his back turned. I like him looking at me. So he's emanating I know you're angry with me or whatever. You don't have social savvy or confidence, to meet another dog, but I'm looking at my owner. This is what we do, and I'm happy with this. I'm waggling my butt and raising a paw, putting out maybe 5 or different friendly appeasement gestures on cue. So, Kelly knows, I just hate all sorts of gizmos and things which sound cool, but let's approach what the problem is. Your voice, have to get the dog through this.
So yes, you need to train your dog, and you need to focus primarily on your own dog, because that's what you can control, and that's where you can affect behavior change. I do believe the umbrella is this emergency safety tool for when you really feel like your dog is going to be attacked by an off-leash dog that is not listening. And if you have a small dog, you might be worried about this. I wouldn't use it for every dog that comes up, and if it's when it's recommended, it is an emergency tactic for when you're really truly concerned. And if that makes you feel better to have that, I don't see the harm, as long as your own dog is used to it. Although you should absolutely be working on your dog being neutral. Not every dog is going to be comfortable with their back to a problem. You can let your dog sit at your side or behind you. Again, this is like an emergency thing. Like you learn to body block. You put your dog behind you and you body block the dog that's offensive. There are some bad scenarios. I do know of a dog recently that was being circled, an owner and a dog, only about a 35, 40-pound dog, that was being circled by 2 enormous, wolf dogs, circled off leash. That's not okay. So in those kind of scenarios, you do need to do something more protective. But absolutely, the calmer and cooler your dog can be, the less you have a problem with these kind of things. You can scatter food and run, but it's just it's a safety precaution, and it's more gentle than pepper spraying a dog or something like that. All right, next question. And our 2 dogs enjoy the off-leash park, but go tearing up to other dogs barking. Oh, their tails are wagging and they want to play, but people worry about barking and owners often walk away. Suggestions? Okay, and this is a big one. This is a biggie. It's not okay that your dogs go tearing up to other dogs barking. It really isn't. Whether they're friendly or you think they're friendly, or they could be the friendliest dogs in the world. It's imagine if humans did that. Imagine if you were walking in the park and 2 people came running up to you and said, hi. It's not, it's offensive, it's startling, it's weird, it's not okay. So suggestion would be to have, well, there's a lot of things here, but have a way to keep them from running up, which would be training. You can teach them a very solid, rock solid sit, which is going to be in specialties. I think a sit is probably better than a recall in this scenario. They see a dog on the horizon, they do an auto sit. You can control the situation for a moment, and then you can ask the owner or assess whether it's okay for them to play. 2 dogs walking together or running together also can be, it's doubly intimidating to some dogs. Even if they do want to play, they might not like the approach and now they don't want to play. But also, 2 dogs can gang up. Like I just talked about these other dogs that started circling and barking and nipping and diving in at this other dog, and whether they're being playful or predatory, it's not okay to do. So I would say an emergency sit, or teach them to hand target. You want to teach them to look at the thing on the horizon, the new dog coming, and then look to you or do something automatically that keeps them in check while you assess the situation. It's always important to ask people if it's okay if your dogs meet their dogs. That's general etiquette for off-leash parks, unless everyone's already in a big play group. But even then, I would say you're kind of leading up to trouble if they're just thinking that seeing another dog playing or on the horizon is a sign for them to go willy-nilly and run towards them. Ian?
Well, yeah, I think this is the presentation I'm giving, right? I filmed it, yeah. It was over the top play and how to control it. And it was exactly
Mhm.
that. Dogs that run up, grab hold of another dog, bite it in the shoulder, on the legs, on the butt, and barking and growling while they're doing it. Even though it's obvious to me, it's total play. I mean, the number of play signals these dogs put out is enormous. You know, bending the elbow, seeing the tongue, you know, weight shifting, moving their body, you know, and all that. So there's no doubt in my mind that this is play, but it's absolutely unacceptable play. It's kind of like I love people analysis Kelly just gave. It's like we're going to a nice quiet park where people are having picnics, and then suddenly I run across and I go flying into the air and land in this person's lap, and then go whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, it's bizarre, but we let dogs do this. So basically, basic training. Your dog needs to understand just a couple of words. You know, chill, shush, settle, boom. And you need to give your dog a running commentary of how he's doing in the park. And so this is what I filmed, because it's very difficult to describe, because most people are into this, like, you know, quantum binary reinforcement, you know, which is, it's so lame. Like, you're going to, in a 20-second period, either give the dog a treat or shout at him or whatever you do for punishment or what have you. No, I give an ongoing running commentary, letting the dog know about 30 pieces of information a minute minimum. Sometimes I get up to 60 if I have a real fast moving dog, that lets them know whether what they're doing is acceptable or not. And if it's acceptable, how good it is. And if it's unacceptable, how totally unacceptable it is. All with my voice. But I also interrupt the play session a lot. Every 20, 30 seconds, I say, sit, good dogs, go play. You can't let dogs play for 3 minutes unattended, because they will amp it up until it gets out of control. If it's your dog, they all come down on you like you're some kind of leper, bringing your dog to the park, you know, and it's not good PR for dogs, you know, let's put it that way. Anyway, it's the subject of my video.
Yeah, it's another topic that you're really, really good at handling in a calm way, because it gets frenzied and people get anxious. And yeah, people do walk away or get upset. A lot of people, and sometimes not every dog does want to play, even if they're, you know, different dogs have different play styles, different types and different sizes. So, you know, it's just not necessary. They can still play, but they should have some manners around it. Do you remember, Ian, that I Dune, our American bulldog? He was enormous and intimidating with his inscrutable gaze. I would walk in the hills, in the hills and on the fields with him, and I taught him to sit in place whenever he saw something coming up the trail, because there were horses, there were free roaming cattle, and this is a bulldog, mind you. American bulldogs, like a big pit bull. He was a very tight fit. Oh, he was so handsome. Bulldog. So, you know, and there are turns in the trails and stuff, and I couldn't always see what was ahead. So he saw something coming, he would sit and look at me, and he could be literally 100 yards away. 100 yards? I don't know, 100 feet. I can't do measurements. Far away, but not that far. And he would wait. 500 feet. I don't know. I wouldn't
don't do
get
numbers, Kelly. You know you don't understand numbers. Stick to words.
No, he was far away.
Let's say he wasn't by your side. Yeah.
Well, what? And at that point, I could assess and either go put a leash on him if it looked like somebody was nervous. He was also a big, intimidating looking dog, even though he wasn't going to be unfriendly. I sometimes made a big show of putting my leash on so somebody could walk by calmly, or if somebody was on horseback, I almost always did that, not because my dog was out of control, but because it made people feel better. And you know, and good PR does matter. So that's I'm so glad that you asked that question, and we don't want to be down on play, but you know, keeping control and keeping levels of arousal down are really important key takeaways from that. Thank you. Next question.
I just have one quick exercise for Anne. I love dreaming up exercises where you can go to a dog park and resolve a problem in one visit. Now, what usually happens, people go to the park to let the dog off leash, he's out of control. So what I do is I'll sit down and chat to them for half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. Eventually, the dog calms down. Then we'll start training it. Why? Because then you can non-stop praise your dog for being good. It's like he's got it out of his system, which means the next time back in the park, he will be at that stage much earlier, maybe after 20 minutes or 15. And so next time you go to the park, just try your best to give him feedback, but only praising him when he's getting it right. And then at the end, spend extra time in the park to have a good time with him, praising him for being so, responsive and attentive and quiet and not chasing other dogs. So you can actually do an awful lot in one dog park visit, but most people don't do that. When their dog's at this point, they put the leash on and take him home. Once the dog becomes trainable, they say, right, let me punish you for that. Dog park visit over, leash on, home we go.
Oh, I'm just seeing the comments right now too. So there are questions in the comments, but we have an order that we're doing them. So we'll try to get to everybody. Even we have to go a little faster on answers, I think.
Yes, I'll try.
Okay, next question. Ren's pups. How do you teach an obnoxious, over-the-top, food-motivated dog? Food is super exciting to settle down. Oh, this is a fun one. This is so fun. Teaching your dog to settle in the presence of food. That's our basic, settle and off exercise, right? From puppy class, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think this question's a plant. We must know the people at Ren's Pups who asked the question. This is your classic where lure reward training is just not going to work. You pull out the food and the dog goes ballistic. We either have to change to shaping where the food comes out. It's not on your person, but it comes out following a click for a little bit of good behavior. Or I personally would go straight to weight and reward training. You let the dog go ballistic. I even pretend I'm eating the food. I go, yum, yum, yum. I'm getting it because I'm good and you're not. You're silly. You're jumping. You're barking. Ha, 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 ha. And we wait for 1 second of stillness. Good dog. And he gets a bit of food. Now we up the ante, 2 seconds, then 3, 5, 8, 10, 20. And it's as quick as when we teach off. Weight and reward training is the training technique of choice for out of control, over the top, adolescent, hyperactive, rambunctious, and rumbustious dogs. And it changes their behavior again in one session. And now you can use the food profitably as a reward or as a lure without the dog going silly on it. And so, I was just in my book, I was just going through it today. I've got to do the last read through and I'm in the chapter on lure reward training. And I suddenly switched to, okay, the dog's bothering at the food in your hand and jumping up and down. Take a break, go back to weight and reward training so he knows when food comes out, not to touch it. And then you have a different dog and then you go back to luring again.
Yes, and teaching open hand, closed fist is, a good way to do it. A lot of dogs are excited about the lure, and that's not a bad thing. And if you're doing like activating, splashy, sporty work, you kind of want them like nim, 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 pushing at it. Most people don't want that for their average everyday pet dog because it hurts. They can get jumpy and bitey or wiggling too much. So, what you teach then is when I'm offering it to you, whether it's open palm or, I'm handing it to you in some fashion, you can take it, but you've got to take it gently. So that's another piece of the puzzle. But when I close my fist, you're going to let them, no, sniff, sniff, push, sniff, no. And the minute they stop, whether it's out of boredom or they hear something else or they look at you like, what the heck? Good dog, and then you open, and then they can eat, right? So that's one thing. So you teach them that different hand positions mean different things. And then if they are snappy when they take the food, I will, you can wear gloves if you need to too. I do hold it in such a way that they can't really get to it. even for a take it. And so now this means don't take it. This might mean take it, but instead of letting them just do this, again, maybe you need to wear gloves or be prepared, but you don't give it up until they lick, or back off, and you can offer it. So this is something you do when they're not excited, and you can start with boring food. Don't start with your tasty bits of cheese or your favorite liver treats or whatever they love. Kibble. Start with their base, or and even if they don't eat kibble, something dry. There's raw kibble. Something not the most exciting and greasy and smelly, mushy stuff. Mushy stuff is good for getting them to lick, though. I do like to use string cheese that you can hold on to, and if you can handle the little nibbles, or if you need to wear gloves, get them used to licking out of your hand. Great question, though. It's not a reason not to lure. And luring isn't everything, and you don't use it for everything, but it's such a valuable tool, and it's worth teaching your dog to be calm in the presence of food and focused so that they can be present with you and learn. All right, next question.
The wonderful thing is when the dog's doing that and you start with weight and reward training, in 20 minutes, you will have a 30-second to 1 minute sit stay, and you haven't even haven't instructed it. The beautiful thing about teaching off with food is the dogs pull back and then they sit. And so you just, good dog, 1, treat. Next time, good dog, 1, good dog, 2, treat. And once you're over 10 seconds now, it can be 15, 20, 30, and the dog's still in the sit stay. I have a lovely video of teaching Wookie this, and she got something like a 5-minute sit stay, and I've never said the word sit or stay. It's the beauty of it.
The best part of this is that you do see that quick, that you can get you will get reinforced because this works very quickly. All right, next question. Brookie question. My dog is afraid of loud noises since someone was firing their gun near an agility field. Now he waits to hear something scary every time we go out. How should I desensitize him?
Well,
in
Kelly,
3 minutes.
You already gave them the answer when you said, I said, bring the outside world indoors. And you said, like noises. Tapes of every noise there is. The first time the dog should hear it is in the living room beside his bed, and then playing louder and louder, so that we know, and especially if you have a shepherdy type dog, or especially if you live in areas with loud noises like Chinese New Year or thunderstorms. I mean, we know this is going to happen. So now we got to go back and desensitize. It's same technique, it just takes longer now. And, it could be your interpretation of the etiology is true, that because someone fired a gun near the agility field, maybe it's not true at all. Your dog spooked at a loud noise. I mean, that's pretty common if dogs haven't heard loud noises. So if you look at the videos that Julie Case showed in the previous summit that I did with Pet Summits, look at her environmental enrichment videos, it will blow your mind. Her dogs are bomb-proof, and when you watch these videos of a whole kindergarten class, everyone with noisemakers handling neonatal puppies, and then 4-week-old and 5-week-old, they were bomb-proof. Nothing faces them because now nothing is unfamiliar. And the number one task, my last sentence, Kelly, don't worry, my number, one thing to do in puppyhood is to make the unfamiliar of adolescence and adulthood the familiar of puppyhood. And then you just don't have these problems. Now the solution is same, but progressive desensitization takes much longer than flooding, which we can do with puppies. That's the wonderful thing. It's, you've heard Ian say, oh, you shouldn't flood with scary stimuli, but you can with puppies. It's great.
Tiny puppies. Don't just go saying you can flood with puppies. There's a lot more to that than just flooding puppies. Babies. Anyway, how old? You don't do that with a 12-week-old puppy. You do that with a 5, 6, 7, 8-week-old puppy.
Too late. Sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, with a neonate, you can do it. They can't hear, they can't see. They hear vibrations. That's when we expose them to noises between 3 and 4 weeks when the ears open and the eyes open, then movements. But no, without that kind of enrichment, I certainly wouldn't do it to a 12-week-old puppy. We're now progressively desensitizing.
Okay, good question. Next question, please. Carolyn, how do I help my 5-month-old and 1.5-year-old German Shepherd to get her to stop barking at other dogs at the vet office? She wants to go and see them. So there are 2 German Shepherds. One is 5 months, one is 1.5 years. That's, that dog is overexcited or alerting or maybe even stressed. Everybody, it's hard to say if they really want to go see them. Maybe they do and they're overexcited. It doesn't matter whether they're excited or afraid, and because other people will have a similar question. And so the emotion of the dog, if it's over the top, doesn't matter as much as the fact that you all kind of want the same thing in the end, which is to teach a calm response, to teach your dog to be calm in these environments, rather than excited, upset, happy, scared, whatever it may be. So the vet's office is hard because it's a small room and it's indoors and there's a very close proximity. That's of this level. Is your dog, my question is, are your dogs quiet around other dogs in other scenarios, would be my first question. Are they okay and not barking at dogs from the window of your house or from your backyard or when you take them on walks or to the park? Is it really just at the vet's office? Have you taken them into pet stores and can you work in that environment? They're probably feeding off of each other, but if they are concerned or excited, the answer is still the same, and it's not very different than what we have suggested earlier. It's pretty much the same thing, which is get your dog to do something else proactively that you'd like them to do, and let them know that, when they see other dogs in their presence, we look at our person, we get some eye contact, we get a nose touch, we get a sit, whatever it may be, and we work on this gradually. Ian?
Yeah, I think you said a very important thing there, but you went over it very quickly. The etiology, to me, doesn't enter into this, and that's very important because a lot of people, if they think their dog is stressed or anxious or shy or scared, that's it. But what we've got to do, regardless of etiology, is teach the dog to shush on cue. And of course, we do that by teaching them to speak on cue first. And then we yo-yo the 2, woof, shush, woof, shush, woof, shush. And then we test it. So I took Phoenix to San Francisco once on a long walk, and every 25 yards, it was Feeny speak, woo, 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 Feeny shush. And I found a couple of situations where, oh no, not only would she not shush, she wouldn't even speak. So we just stayed around, and one I found was the Doberman locked in a van. And eventually I got Feeny to speak, good girl, and then shush, and we moved on because the Dobie was now rocking the van. Now, the thing is that the etiology, regardless of etiology, we have to teach the dogs to speak and therefore to shush. If they are scared or anxious, though, additionally, we have to build their confidence and get them over their anxiety and fear. But the solution is always the same. Let's just teach them to shush on cue. I remember once I went to see a very, very famous dog trainer at a flyball trial. And her dog, who I'd known for years, pretty well trained, was a maniac. It did not stop barking for about 30 minutes. And I can't understand that. And then I mentioned it to the trainer, and they said, well, yeah, it's a border collie. It's she's excited. I said, yeah, but she can be excited and quiet. And I just can't understand that. As with our dogs, even though they're down on the lower lawn, I didn't like them barking when playing. We have neighbors and we have a park. And from upstairs, I could say, Doon, shush. And I think, why don't we just teach them to shush? Well, I think the reason is pretty obvious. I think not too many trainers know how to teach shush on cue. They'll always be talking about something else, and let's just teach them to shush. In the same way, if we wanted a dog to sit, we wouldn't go through all of these things, DROs and DRIs or what have you. We would just teach it to sit on cue or down on cue. And to me, these are three most important words to teach any dog: sit, settle, and shush. And that eliminates so many problems. And then, as you've heard, as Kelly said, and I've said in the other questions, start doing it in your kitchen. Home and family first, then get it in your living room, then in your garden, then on the fence line when you've got a bunch of people walking dogs by, And so we start here on the bottom step. We don't expect to go straight into a vet clinic with an untrained dog that doesn't know what downstay or shush means. Otherwise, the dog will just be doing what the dog wants to do, which is bounce up and down, greet all the dogs, sniff them, hump them, or what have you. Keep it simple. Sit and shush.
Nice. All right. Thank you. Next, these are all great questions. They're very thoughtful people.
They're good. They're short. Wish my answers could be short.
Tricky Tricky Chihuahua, I think. Everything trashes blankets. Wait, I don't know if this is the beginning of the question or not. I can't move the questions. Somebody's chewing and has separation anxiety. And this isn't a very clear question the way it's posted. I think
the dog is working, maybe an assistance dog, and it's cool when it's working, but when it's not, it's then chewing and destroying stuff.
Okay, I have a dog that is a service dog. Okay, it's currently who is currently and starting to get a service dog. Currently is starting to get older, so I have to think about retirement for her in the next 2 years or so. But when I try to phase out of public access, she tears things up. She doesn't want to be left at home. She's anxious and maybe bored. So that's a two-parter question, really. I think. Yeah. So when she tears things up,
it's very difficult for a dog like a service dog because they're with the owner 24/7, except the few times when they aren't. And so we train them here, and a major part of training is crate training. Right from when they arrive, they get used to half an hour in the crate or an hour in the crate with a stuffed chew toy. For the first few days in training, there's no food bowls at all. All food comes from the human hand or from a hollow chew toy. It's so important dogs like this, and especially heavy-duty working dogs and obedience dogs, know how to chill on cue. And to me, I would teach that prior to teaching them their working dog skills, whether as a ADI, assistance dog or an obedience dog. They must know how to turn off. Otherwise, life is really upsetting for them.
Yes,
so
I think it's important to...
You talk.
Okay. I mean, this dog has already been service dog. I think this dog is already, obviously it's already a service dog. So it is something to keep in mind when training a new service dog. And it's not to say that you can't do those things that Ian is saying now. You should try, because you know that this is coming and you're going to be phasing or out. I would be careful with the word separation anxiety. Your dog may be stressed and upset or even angry or bummed to be left behind or bored, but true separation anxiety, isn't really tearing up things in the house so much. It is, that might be boredom or displeasure, but unless she's panicking at the doors and trying to get out the windows and doors or at her crate or confinement and won't eat anything, you may not have true separation anxiety there. I hope you don't. But yeah, imagine your job is just taken away and you've been out in the world, you know what's going on out there. So this is something to work on gradually. And it is a skill, especially for a dog that has been going everywhere. I have a lesser version of that with my sport dog, Laz. He's retired from sport. And, he doesn't get to go as many places as he used to. Like, I try to take him lots of places, but he doesn't go to the club with me on the weekends anymore because it's hard for him to be there and not do the work, and he can't do the work right now. So, but he knows every Saturday that I'm getting up and where I'm going is what he's done his whole life with me. And he knows I'm taking Arabella, so he's sad, he's bummed. So I try to make sure that I give him some special time first, get some time before I leave. We go for a nice walk, or we play a nice game, or we do some sport training, but at home. So he feels like he had to scratch that itch a little bit. And then I make sure that he has some kind of special chew toy or something that he wants to do. It could be marrow bone day, big beef knuckle bone day, or some kind of food puzzle when I leave, so that he has something to look forward to. And that's how I started to ease him into that. So, do you have one more thing to say before we go to the next question?
Of course I do. The whole separation thing is like a buzzword, and we know what the dog is doing. We don't know why he's doing it, and many dogs have what I call separation joy. They're glad the owner's away so they can do what they want. Like, I was looking after the dogs today, and then I noticed, because I was sitting at my computer actually going through the talks that we had, so I knew what the hell people had said. And then I looked out to the lawn, and the Bernese puppy had moved every single cushion to the lawn. I mean, like 10 cushions. Didn't chew them, just, Anyway, Shade said something in her presentation how it's important to check on how the dog is feeling. We're the guardian, the ambassador for our dogs. And so she used 4 words in succession: calm, quiet, comfortable, and confident. And the thing is, with comfortable, confident, no, that's our impression. That's subjective. That's our view of how we think the dog is feeling. The dog is comfortable in this situation. The dog is confident. Calm and quiet, that's what we know for certain. The dog is not moving, it's lying down, and it's not barking. So we must always distinguish between what the dog is doing, its behavior, which is observable, quantifiable, and very quickly changeable, and then how we think it's feeling. Now, we may be spot on. When you live with a dog for 10 years, you're pretty good interpreting the feelings. And if you've been a trainer for 10 years, you've been pretty good at, working out that individual dogs aren't feeling too good at the moment. But it still is a subjective view of what you think. That's why, to avoid getting into arguments, I just say, I'm going to concentrate on the activity and the noise, and I'm going to do it in a way that's fun, giving lots and lots of food rewards, kind of like classical conditioning on steroids. So at the end of this, if the dog was upset, well, he's no longer upset, but also he's calm and quiet.
Let me also add, remind you all that we do have a talk specifically on separation anxiety in the summit with Ness. And it was a very wonderful conversation that she and I had. So I would encourage you to check that out and, and look to her for more resources if you do have separation anxiety, or if you're worried that it might develop, which if you're thinking ahead about a time when your dog's life is going to change or your routine is going to change, this is a way that you can help avoid those kind of things from happening. So, and we are going to go a few minutes longer, and we're going to try to get to several more questions. We may or may not get through everyone's questions right now, but there is a forum, and we will be on the forum where we're typing answers, and and a lot of these questions will be addressed in the Out of Control Summit. And on one of these days, we've got 14 different speakers, I think, and 14, 15 different presentations. If you talk about our kickoff panel was actually really helpful and wonderful as well. So I apologize if we don't get to your question. We're going to go very quickly through a few more. So Ian, we got to go as fast as we can and still being informative and helpful on a few more questions. Next question, please. Jenny, My dog lunges terribly at any other dogs passing on leash. I don't know why. Twice he got away from me and jumped on the other dog. Didn't hurt the dog, but it was scary. How do I approach this problem? I don't know if you've been listening the whole time, Jenny. We've kind of addressed this because, again, whether a dog is overstimulated because they're excited or angry or fearful or just rude, it doesn't matter. The answer is kind of the same. But Ian, would you like to do a 3-minute?
It doesn't matter why the dog's doing it. It's totally unacceptable. It appears not to be dangerous because it's happened a couple of times. The best exercise to resolve this is called concentric circles. You want to get a whole bunch of dogs and they walk clockwise. Your dog works anti-clockwise. Okay, you're on the inner circle, dog's on the left. That means when you pass these 20 people who are walking around, dogs are on the outside, people are on the inside. Every lap, you're going to walk by 20 dogs with people, and your dog is going to sit each time. The first lap is just a joke. It's horrendous. By the third lap, your dog's getting it. By the sixth lap, so now we've had 120 sit while the other dog passes by, we've really mixed it. Then you change directions. Now it's different.
How do you get 20 dogs?
Pardon?
How do you get 20 dogs? How are you going to get 20 dogs?
Well, this is the number one exercise that anyone who's teaching an adolescent class should be teaching. It's biggest bang for your buck. It's what everyone wants. They want the dog not to pull or lunge and walking on leash, and the biggest distraction is other dogs. Or you start with your dog's core social group. You know, who are his best friends, who you meet and play with and go on walks with every week. If you don't have a core social group, get one for your dog. Let's be realistic and natural. Dogs live in core social groups, so let's make sure a dog has one. But that's the best exercise, and I would say go to any dog park and say, hey, let's do concentric circles. And that's what every dog park needs, is an MC or a trainer, so every dog there is being trained as he plays. And the training is reinforced by the words, go play.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. We should go to the next question. It's 4:01. I think we're officially finished, but we'll try to do a few more. Oh, what muzzle and what top brands would you use? Okay, I have so many muzzles, and I just had one on this friggin' table until, of course, till today. I think it's still here. You know, the Baskerville muzzles are nice. It depends on what you're doing. You know, you need for most things that you're going to do. If you're going to want a muzzle that is basket style, not a nylon Mickey muzzle. This isn't a vet treatment. This is a dog that's active and needs to pant and maybe even drink or take treats. But there's another brand, and I will have to post it on the forum later. I have a few that I like. I bought one like randomly somewhere, and it's the best. It has, instead of just like the whole basket muzzle that is all the same holes all through the whole mouth, it has like a little mouth opening here, but not so much they can bite, just so much that they can literally stick their tongue through it. and it's kind of cute, but it's also, I found it to be very effective. But a moldable, you know, silicone or softish, hard, you know, it depends on the dog. It really does. I will go into the forum later and post some muzzle suggestions. Next one. Can you briefly, Carrie says, can you briefly comment on different breeds needing different trainings or the same basics? Well, I think it's important to know the type of dog you have more than the breed. And of course, you know, by type, I mean, you know, is it a herding dog? Is it a terrier? Is it a hound? You know, that kind of thing. Primarily, if you have a mix, they have, you know, you'll know by their behavior what type of dog they need. But also, even if they aren't the breed that usually is sniffy or whatever it may be, look at what your dog is doing that they're compelled to do, that you have trouble getting them to stop doing because they're getting inherent pleasure out of it, and you know that'll tell you whether you need to change your training. I mean, the basics are pretty much the same, but foundation work is foundation work with, getting your pup's attention and engagement and building relationship. All of that has to come first, with the hand feeding, toy feeding, teaching play, spending quiet time. All of that is the same. However, you can leverage your dog's interests and desires based on who they are, whether as an individual or as a breed type. So for instance, if you want to use a life reward as an example for this, if you have a boxer or some kind of pit bull mix or a rambunctious GSD or something like that, tug and pulling and fighting might be a great reward for them in life. Whereas if you have a beagle or a terrier, they're going to want to sniff and range for their free time, and you can utilize this in your training. Giving them access to the things they want, well, after you ask for a certain behavior for a brief period of time. Yes, you're going to find that it's hard to get a herding dog to stop wanting to alert and bark and run and chase after things. It's not impossible, but it's not going to be as easy as if you have, I don't know, a basset hound. You're going to have a harder time keeping your beagle off the counters or out of your cabinets than you are with, let's say, a chow chow. In most cases, these are generalizations. So it is worth looking at your dog as a breed or breed type, but also as an individual, and leveraging the things they like and trying to find appropriate outlets for the things that they like. Not only using them in training, but giving them the opportunities to do the things that they inherently need to do. But basically, almost every dog in the world is capable of taking food gently from your hand, or driving in for a treat, or lying quietly at your side for a few minutes, or not chasing and not barking when asked. So in that sense, I think it's kind of don't let that be your folly. Don't let that stop you. Certainly do take time to get to know your dog, but don't. It's not an excuse. You can't say that the husky will never learn not to pull, for instance. That's silly. Ian, anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, in terms of training exercises, the training tower is always the same, no matter what the dog. So the foundation, or terra firma, is the dog's temperament. Without that, no matter what you teach, it'll fall apart in certain situations. Next up comes the centripetal exercises, where you want the dog to want to be close to you, the psychological bungee cord, following off leash, and then heeling off leash, and then putting the leash on to heel and walk on leash. Then come the positions, sit, down, stand, that we teach in a sequence. Sit, down, sit, stand, down, stand. 6 different position changes. These then morph into sit stays, down stays, and stand stays. You've then got a pretty good basic dog, and the recall just comes for free. What I try to change, depending on the breed or type or individual dog, is to speed them up or to slow them down, and to increase their attention if they're a breed that's like this. I want focus, looking at me. And so, yeah, we do modify according to the different individual dog, but we're just teaching exactly the same things, because there's nothing like a dog with a good temperament that wants to be close to you and other family members and people. It has a quick sit and a rock solid stay. And there you go.
Yeah. There you go. All right, we have to go very soon. Let's do one more.
One more.
Pat S. My 3 whippets are very well behaved when walking individually, however, become aggressive when walking together as a pack. Aggressive towards each other, or I'm assuming aggressive and kind of like a gang, a little whippet street gang, charging or barking and lunging at others when they go by. They're feeding off of each other. Ian, do you want to take that? And then we're going to wrap.
Yeah, then I wouldn't walk them as a pack. I would 3 dogs, 3 people, put them on leash, go for a walk, but space out 25 yards between you. And then as the walk goes on, you get closer and closer, or you may overlap and get the distance and deal with it gradually. So whether these dogs are all on leash with one handler or off leash with one handler, that's going to be more control than one person has. So 3 dogs, 3 people, basic training.
And at first, or do them in pairs. And I mean, I think it's not unreasonable to think that you might be able to eventually walk all of them at once.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you have to work up to that, and they are obviously feeding off of each other. And I mean, that's what hounds do, you know. I mean, especially hounds, right? I mean, all dogs do, but you know, I would work them. Obviously, you work them individually. If they're fine, really, are they fine individually, or do they get worked up and it's just easier to control, and you can turn it off and turn it around? When you have multiple dogs, you have to train many different scenarios. You need one-on-one time with all of them, leading up to more and more difficult scenarios. Then you need, for each dog, you need time alone and then time together. And you need time together in pairs and then in larger groups if you're having a problem. So you know, that's something you can work towards, but also maybe don't go for full walks. Go back to training walks. You know, don't take them and say, we're going, you know, to the coffee shop. Say, we're going to the end of the block, or we're going to the next house. And we're going to go back and forth, and you're going to start training walks with them as a team, as teams, and you know, mix those teams up and then together. And it does help if you have different sides. 2 on one side, 1 on the other side, or in whatever order, whichever groups you think get along better. I have, you know, 2 dogs that need to be on my left side because they're trained that way and they like to be there. And then the one that's not doing anything formal, okay, you're going to be on my right side. You're my right side dog. So lots you can do there. Ian, I know you want to have the last
very important advice there, that if more people walked their dog to train it how to walk on leash or off leash, rather than just walking the dog to exercise it,
Yep.
which is folly because all you're doing is building endurance. So now you have to go 10 miles instead of 5. But here's the deal. Yeah, let's do it in pairs. You got 3 dogs, so you have 3 pairs to work with and 1 triad. What if you had 4 dogs? See who can work out how many different pairs of dogs do we have to work with first, and then how many triads or groups of 3 dogs. Because what you'll find is 1 dog is the instigator. And as soon as you isolate that dog, that's the one you train first, because he's the one who's geeing up all the other dogs. And what I learned years ago doing research, studying social hierarchies and then puppy classes, if you remove 1 puppy or 1 dog from a group of 6, 10, 20 dogs, the group is different. It's very interesting. And I think there's a lovely little bit of this in that my TV, the 4-set video, whatever it's called. And it's 3 dogs. And if you bring in the German Shepherd, the Golden Retriever is bullying the Shih Tzu. If the German Shepherd leaves, you bring in the German Shepherd, the Golden Retriever's a wimp, really scared. You take out the German Shepherd, the Golden is now a bully. And so just the presence or absence of 1 dog will radically change the behavior of all other dogs in the group. Therefore, every pair, therefore every triad, and so on and so on. And so that is just fascinating.
It is really cool stuff. There's work you can do there, but you do have to break it down into bits and do it separately. But you have multiple dogs especially. Everything needs to be broken down, and you do need to practice in small areas and then gradually expand to larger and larger areas. We're going to wrap up at Tess M. You said the title of today's presentation was Leash Aggression, when we didn't cover that. Yeah, I think there may have been a couple glitches in naming presentations versus what they are. Little clerical errors that we can fix. But tomorrow is all about that. Tomorrow's whole day is about out of control around dogs and people. And we have 3 brilliant presentations on reactivity and how to deal with dogs that are reactive to dogs. So today was about the environment mostly. dogs that are reactive and are out of control or overly excited in the environment. Tomorrow will be around dogs or people. And then the third day will be about home related stuff, right? And then on the fourth day, you get the reactivity essentials. And, you know, so there's a lot more here. We've just scratched the surface. There's going to be a lot of good talks. I'm looking at the schedule here. Yeah. So
tomorrow,
for your question, Tess, I think tomorrow.
Speakers, you've got Joe Rosie, Holly, Kamal. I mean, these are really good dog trainers. But Kelly and I will be here, same time, same place, tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. So,
yep, through Thursday, right? Or Friday, depending on where you are, I suppose. Thank you for taking time to check in with us today and spend some time with us. And again, the forums are open. I will pop in when I can. Ian, you're going to pop into the forums too. And I guess I'm not asking you. I just told you you're going to do that. And we will be there, and we'll be here every day. Thank you for signing up. Thank you for watching. Thank you to our sponsors and Doggy Dan and Ness Jones. And thank you all for being a part of this.
And thank you for the really good questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to them all. Until tomorrow, mañana.
Yeah. Tomorrow is the day. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.